Does everyone have a handout? Someone need one? Yes. Thank you, Bill. All right, it's great to be here. Yay! And I'm not singing this time, and you sure don't need me to. Peggy, great, beautiful song, amazing things. You are doing amazing things with your voice, and thank you, Brian, for your music. And happy birthday. I was supposed to be the one to sing that to you, but you're not doing it. Oh, no, so this morning, we're going to be talking about the Enneagram. How many of you have ever had taken in your lifetime a personality assessment? Sure, almost everybody. How many of you have ever heard of the Enneagram? How many of you have ever studied the Enneagram? How many of you heard of the Enneagram like 2 or 3 years ago? Okay. It's becoming a little trendy, and that's good news and bad news. And it's a strange word. It sounds a little bit like telegram. It ends the same, and it's like a telegram in that it's old, and that it helps us with communicating information. It sounds a little bit like Instagram. It's a tool for today, and it's a great way to connect with people. Hi, Val.
Hi.
You're in an Enneagram class, aren't you?
Yeah.
All right. I was hoping you'd be here. Good. It sounds a little bit like sonogram. And it's the same as a sonogram. It sees right through you. It goes to the core of who you are. And it sounds like mammogram. Ugh. How come? Well, it's uncomfortable when we start to look at some of our behavior. That's how it's similar to that. So the word gram by itself, the ending of Enneagram is a Greek word. It comes from the word gramos, Grammos, meaning a written symbol. The beginning of the word Ennea, E-N-N-E-A, in Greek means 9, the number 9. So there you go, Enneagram. Now, when I was thinking about that and writing that down and wanting to explain that to you, I thought of Gus Portocalis from Big Fat Greek Wedding. You've seen that movie?
Yeah.
Where he everything, give me a word, any word, and I will trace it back to the Greeks. All right? So, yeah, Gus, you got it right, because the Enneagram is Greek. So there you go. But it is so much more than just a Greek symbol, and it is so much more than just a personality assessment tool. Let's look at our handout. Please read with me the top 2 paragraphs above the diagram. The Enneagram is both an ancient tool of self-discovery and a sacred tool for spiritual growth and positive change for today. It is the psychological study of 9 personality types, identifying and encouraging a close look at our false self, our behaviors, and the motivation behind the behavior. At the same time, it has the capacity to move us into a place for embracing our virtues, awakening and rediscovering our true self. Thank you. Purpose of my 30-minute lesson today is to give you just enough information and a tiny bit of experience with the Enneagram so that it is encouraging to you to study this tool more, whether it be online information, whether it be books that I'm going to show you a little bit about, or attend our workshop, which we'll be offering in a couple of weeks, or maybe all of the above. I'm not a preacher, I'm a teacher. So it's just going to appear a little bit more like a lesson than a sermon type thing. And since it's Sunday morning, though, I want us to move quickly from the importance of the psychological perspective of the Enneagram, and I want to move us into just one spiritual component that has been paired with it. It's my intention to always honor this sacred tool in my own humble way. I am an Enneagram enthusiast, not a guru and not a master Enneagram teacher. I refer to some other great guys with all this information. So for me, this study began in the 1980s. I think most of us were living then. And it began at my church. It was a very small, traditional Christian congregation, Presbyterian church. On Sunday mornings, we had a little group during the Sunday school hour where we began to study the Enneagram. Now, it has been known to possibly be of Sufi origin, which is not Christian. And so, as you can imagine, people, we would come out of our class and they would look at us. What is it you're studying, you know? Maybe you're studying a cult? Or is this evil symbol? Or what is this? And they were really wondering about this small group of us. But the more we studied this, the more we became what we felt very enlightened to the truth of it. It is very real to me, and it's uncannily accurate and highly beneficial. There's been all kinds of books and literature supporting the study of the Enneagram. It has been studied by Sufi masters, by Hindu mystics, by Buddhist monks, by Jewish rabbis, and even Christian priests and preachers. So for me, it helped me in the beginning with some ugly stuff that I had brought into my marriage. And you know, in the beginning, when you're married, or in the beginning of any relationship, partnership, friendship, what have you, it's kind of like after a while the honeymoon is over, and you kind of look at the other person and go, "Oh, you do that?" And you're like, "Oh, well, I wonder what they're thinking about how I'm doing this." And it can be a friendship, doesn't have to be a marriage. But in this case, I'm going to use John and I as an example. I love using him as an example, which is great. So I was very uncomfortable with some thoughts and some questions I was having about John and myself. Like, why is he trying to aggravate me so much? And why do I behave the way I do in reacting to something he's doing? It seems simple. Why am I so upset? And why is it so important to have the chores done early? You know, I want to get them all done before noon, and he's not even starting until 12 o'clock. I took that as him being disrespectful to me, or him not really caring about what I wanted, which was not true. I began to see John differently. And that's when I knew there was something good about this tool. I was learning that even though he wanted to go and look at 16 washing machines before we bought a new one, that was okay. That was his way of doing it. I'm fine with just picking out one. And he would say, as long as it was pretty. So what I discovered was that John was a 9 on the Enneagram. And as you can see on the diagram, and as we read in the definition, there's 9 personalities to this. 9s are laid back. They're easygoing. They're detail-oriented. So there's the 16 washing machines. They're
only 12.
Hey, if you didn't hear him, he said it was only 12. Pleasant to be around. You've got to have 9s in your life. They're fantastic. Those of you that know John, would you agree? Laid back, pleasant to be around? Easy to know? Yes. All right. And they are known as the caricature label, which it's not good to label people, but there's a label for every one of the personality types, and it's just to get you started. The label on the 9 is a peacemaker. And I wanted to say meteor, that's not right, mediator. Mediator. They're great people to have in your life, but that doesn't mean he didn't drive me crazy. Because 9s also like to avoid conflict. And they're extremely detailed. You know, like my father always used to say, just give me the time, don't tell me how the watch works. Yeah. Well, John likes to tell me how the watch works. And so I've learned that that's fine, that's good, because just recently he was picking out an insurance policy for us, and he has all the details, and I'm sitting there listening thinking, well, I used to be thinking, oh my God. But now I think, great, because I don't have to do that. He's got that done, and he knows it, and it's a good plan. I'm very thankful for that. Now, another way you can look at a 9, the laid backness appears to look like they're very lazy. And that's not true. But I judged him that way. And what it is more is that he operates on his own timetable. It's not mine, and it doesn't need to be mine. In fact, at the end of the day, everything is done. it's done on time. It's just not my time. So the Enneagrams help me understand John better, and see if you agree with me or not, that when we really, really love someone and we're in a relationship with someone, whether it's a best friend or your mom or your husband or your partner, whatever, that when you begin to understand them better, does it not make you feel like you love them more? It's like it's freeing to love them even more in a healthy way, and then maybe even forgiving them more for things that maybe you think they're doing wrong, or maybe it's just you're doing things differently. One is not right and one is not wrong. You're just different. The Enneagrams also help me understand my father better, who was a 1. 1s are the perfectionists and the reformers. You can imagine living with a father like that. My daughter is a 2. Our oldest daughter's a 2, and that is a giver and helper. And I could go all around telling you what everything is, but I'm not going to do that because it's easy to find that in a book and it's easy to find that online. And I don't believe that that is the essence of the Enneagram, and I want to get to that. The essence of it is not typing each other. It's not like, oh, she's a 2 and I'm a 5 and hoorah, here we go. It's not that. It should not stop there. It can stop there, and for many it does, but it should not. It's much deeper than that. Suzanne Stabile, one of my great guru gals out of Dallas, Texas, wrote a book called The Road Back to You, all about the Enneagram. Every single chapter takes every single number and goes into it, and she does a beautiful job with relationships with the number. She also has another book that she focuses a lot on the career, too, of how this plays into your career. Suzanne says that there are 9 ways of looking at things, 9 ways of doing things, 9 ways of thinking, 9 ways of feeling, 9 ways of being in the world. Well, you might be thinking, just 9? No, not just 9, because the Enneagram is very complex. There's all sorts of variant components within it that make up who we are. So let's take a look at the diagram for just a minute. And let's go ahead and see here that what I really love is that they're all on a circle. That the core framework of this symbol is a circle. And that reminds me of the center of universal oneness. I love that. And the circle does have a spiritual law behind it, the law of 1. All the numbers are equal. They're all on a certain place of the circle, and none of them is far away or any different in space. So we're all together in this. So let's take the 9 on the top of the circle, which doesn't mean anything that it's the top necessarily. You're not better than everybody else, John. Sorry to tell you that. And so you'll see that there are 2 numbers besides the 9, the 8 and the 1, and those are called their wings, and they play into the personality of the 9 as well. And then if you notice, there's arrows. There's an arrow going down from the 9 to a 6, and there's an arrow coming up from a 3 to a 9. All 5 of those numbers play into who a 9 is. And we all have a little bit of every number in us. But as you can see, the arrows and the circle and all the numbers, this is not a static symbol. This is very dynamic. It's a living tool, and we're moving around the Enneagram all the time, every day. We're going from 3 to a 1. We have a little bit of a 2 in us, predominantly a 9 if that's who we are, and so on. So many factors come into play, too, as to who we are. Childhood, our parental expectations, our environment, different events. So that's another reason why not all 9s look alike. We could have 7 9s in here right now, and we are not going to get that far today. But we could, and you'll be like, you're a 9? I'm a 9. She's a 9? Oh, wow. Well, those too many components, too many variables. What was your childhood like? You know, like lots of personalities, extrovert, introvert, all of those components are important. But let's just take a 9 that you might be familiar with besides John. We'll get eyes off of John for a minute. Edith Bunker. Edith Bunker from All in the Family TV show, wife of Archie. Okay, she was a 9. Oh, Archie, no, I don't want any conflict. No, you're going to be okay. Everybody's all right. You know, definitely an 8. 8s are the boss and the leader. No, Edith, we're doing it this way. You know, constantly like bossing everybody around, right? So he was an 8, and I think he was an unhealthy 8. So she's a 9, and then guess who else was a 9? Walt Disney. Supposedly. I mean, he didn't, I don't know if he took this back in the 60s, but people that have studied different celebrity personalities can bring a lot of them into play to our study, which makes it really fun and interesting. Because then you kind of have a little bit of an image. We don't want to stereotype, but it kind of helps you see what an 8 might look like or what a 9 might look like. Walt Disney, what an imagination, creator of beautiful, magical places. Would you say he was a lot like Edith Bunker?
No.
Probably not. But they were both 9s. Could you see him as a peacemaker? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So then let's take the 8 for another example real quick. Archie, an 8. The stereotype, or not really stereotype, let's use the word caricature. Caricature of an 8 is the boss and the leader. Our president supposedly is an 8. And guess who else was an 8? Talk about a contrast. Dr. Martin Luther King. Bossy? No. Leader? Oh yeah. With a 9 wing for peacemaking, the 8 with a 9 wing, a leader of nonviolent resistance. So there you go. You can have 9s that are very different people, 8s that are very different people. The Enneagram is old, and the origin is really unknown. It dates back to the Desert Fathers and Mothers, like 300, 400 AD. It's been known to have Sufi origin, like I said before. During the workshop that I'll be offering in a few weeks, we'll go in more into just a brief touch of history, and then how it is credible for today in the modern world as well. I will introduce you to authors and authorities, and my most favorite that I have, on the back of your sheet, I've quoted the 4 people that I'm introducing you today to, but Richard Rohr. I had the privilege of seeing him at his Center for Contemplation and Action in Albuquerque, New Mexico, just a few months ago. He has studied the Enneagram all of his priesthood life. He is a Catholic priest, but he is so out of the box. He's so refreshing. I highly recommend him. And actually, it was Richard Rohr's little tiny cassette tapes that we listened to in the 80s, in that cute little fun Sunday school class that almost got us all excommunicated. So on the back of your handout, like I said, there's Richard's quote, and then there's Don Rizzo's quote. Don is a social psychologist who recently died, but he's my psych go-to guy for the personality types. He does not bring the spiritual component into the study, which is fine, because studying the psychology part is excellent. Who does a fabulous job doing that, and I'm going to talk more about Chris Hertz in just a minute, is Christopher out of Omaha, Nebraska, writing the book called The Sacred Enneagram, like my new most favorite book on that. All right, so with Richard, Don, Suzanne, and Chris, take a look on the back here, on the other side of the diagram. Look over those quotes for a minute, or if you've already have, I'd like for you to tell me if there's a quote you really like, willing to read it out loud, or if you have a thought, or if you have a comment about any of that. Let's take a moment and let you just take that all in. Have a thought? Anybody want to repeat any words of the quote that, like, boy, that jumped out at you, Karen?
I love the one that the Enneagram brings is an into focus on an essential truth of the soul. It does this in a way that most people have seldom
Yeah.
in a big way.
Very good. And I think I've said this and I'll say it again because it's definitely worth saying. When I studied the Enneagram at first, it was just a psychological tool. We were not doing anything spiritual with it at all. Lately, my guys, Suzanne, Richard, Chris, say just the Enneagram by itself. You have to connect the spiritual. Thank you for bringing that up. Val, would you agree with that? You're shaking your head.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I like Chris Hurt's quote too. The sacred map to the soul, 9 ways to return to the true self.
And Val is taking classes at Unity Temple. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's ongoing.
Great. That's
with
great.
Sunday services.
Great. Encourage you to do that. Yes, Vicki?
The one that I like is the second one. I won't read it all, but rather the last few words. It has been kept alive because it works. And I like that because I really get tired of trendy kinds of things that are monetized and become the it thing for, a month, a week,
Right.
a year. So I like that it is steeped in history and steeped in what? Steeped in some very, very deep spiritual roots.
Yeah, it's become trendy. And Suzanne says, oh, please, let's not have this be elevator talk. It has become, but as you can tell, this has been around a long time. Long time. And my granddaughter, oh, Grandma, you're going to speak on the Enneagram? Oh, that's great, that's great. I took the test, Grandma. She's 16. I'm a 2. She's not a 2, but I didn't tell her that because I don't believe in typing someone else. I've had friends say, what do you think I am? I don't tell them. It's a self-discovery. And so as she grows, she'll figure it out. I'll tell you what she is though. She's an 8. I know what I am. I'm like, boy, just the way you said it, you're not a 2. Oh. All right. Anyone else? Yes, Kim.
From Suzanne Stable, the last sentence really speaks to what I often think in Unity. I remember another minister that we had talk about how you tell somebody from Unity, they always have these big Unity bookshelves. And what she says is growth takes place as a community of people experiences it together. And I always think you take in all this knowledge and now what are you going to do with that? How does that
Exactly.
apply
Right.
when I meet that guy on the road that I don't like or have a bad boss? How does it work for me? And growth takes place in
Yeah.
the group.
Right, and that's really good for the community piece. And that's one reason why I like to do the workshop instead of just talking to people, because I want you to delve into it, study it, interact with people. The 2s get over here, the 4s get over here. Or people of your different number and you go, oh, you reacted that way? Oh, I react this way to the same situation. So that's what I hope for the workshop. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, one thing I want you to keep in mind is that not everyone's interested in the Enneagram. Not everyone wants to study it, and that's very fine. It's just one tool. It's just one. And another important point that I think I've already made, it is definitely a bridge between psychology and spirituality. Studying only the psych part really does not get us far in our spiritual development. But that is where we start. We've got to start by identifying our number, our personality type, our false self behaviors, and you will be taking a finding yourself inventory to help you see who you are if you enroll in the workshop. I'll be sending you that. I've heard in the Enneagram lectures, one example was a very good one, I thought, that our personality is like a security blanket. That we're born with true essence, beauty, wonder as an infant, and then as we grow, as parental expectations come upon us, our environment and so on, and the world takes over, we start putting on that security blanket. And it's covering up the true self, the true essence. I really liked that analogy. And then to take it away, you know how trying to take away a child's blankie? Is that easy? No. They've got to have their blankie. And so we do too. And so to take it off and to pull it away, that is not comfortable. Studying the Enneagram is not super fun, I'll just tell you that right now. Maybe I just lost 5 people. But it's not fun. It's enlightening, and it's challenging for growth and transformation, but you gotta do the work. You gotta do the work. You gotta let the blanket go. Right, Jeff? Letting go and radical acceptance, those are words he uses that I really like. All right, so now I want to bring us to the spirituality piece. Recently, I have been studying and practicing contemplative prayer or centering prayer. And I know many of you are familiar with contemplation and meditation. I'm not teaching you anything new with that. Reverend Nian from Unity Temple does her her classes on the Enneagram and includes a 20-minute contemplative sit. Wow, we're going to do that, but not 20 minutes. Not 20 minutes, because I know you have a good time frame here. But we are going to do a 2-minute sit, and I call it a sacred pause, because I want us to make that connection. Contemplative prayer is intentional in that you are allowing God to speak to your heart. You're stopping everything. You're being quiet and allowing that. Now, Chris Hertz is the one out of Omaha that does a beautiful job bringing spirituality in with the Enneagram. And Chris says, the Enneagram is a sacred map to the soul, and that there are 9 ways to return to our true self, and I'm glad one of you brought that up. And he goes very deep into each personality type and begins to say, what do we need to do with this information to create positive change in our lives, like Kim brought up. So let's look at the diagram one more time. And I want to show the bottom part of this. The 9 personality types, each one of them reside in a triad. Or another name for the triad is called center of intelligence. They represent how we receive the experiences, how we relate to the world. So take the 9, he's with an 8 and a 1. He's in the blue section. That's another reason why I really like this diagram, because of the colors. The 8, 9s, and 1s are in the body center. And they relate to the world by doing. The 2s, 3s, and 4s are in the heart center. And they relate to the world by feeling. The 5, 6, and 7s are in the head center, and they relate to the world by thinking. Now you might be saying, well, I feel, do, and think. Well, sure. But this is predominantly where they're reacting with events and experience in their lives. Their first doing, or their first feeling, or their first thinking. The 8s, 9s, and 1s, the body center needs stillness. They need to stop doing. They need to stop being busy with their lives. They need to take time to be still. So here's the first contemplative prayer posture that's needed, is the stillness. They more than anybody need that. We all need it, but they more than anybody need that. Heart center. They need solitude as their prayer practice. They are constantly connecting and being with people. 2s, 3s, and 4s are all about relationships. They need to separate themselves and be alone and be quiet. It's very crucial for them to have solitude. The head center needs silence. They're thinking. They're always collecting data and processing and on the computer gathering research and da-da-da. They need to be quiet. Their mind needs to stop. So silence is their prayer posture. So I want to invite us now to do a 2-minute pause incorporating all 3 of those important prayer postures. Because we all need stillness, we all need solitude, and we all need silence. The stillness will feel familiar to you now during your normal meditation time because you have that and you're still. The solitude will feel the same because even though you're all together, when you close your eyes, you're by yourself. You're used to that. But the silence might be a little bit different because there's not going to be any talking. There's going to be no words I want you to think about. There's not going to be any music. It's just going to be total silence. Now, what are you responsible for? Nothing. Let God speak to your heart. Let the divine spirit that is in you, your true self, your true essence, have a say. You need to be quiet. Let your true essence have time to speak to your heart. We all have that in us. There's nothing special or different about that. We all have access to that. I will let you know when 2 minutes are up, and then we'll wrap this up. So close your eyes and concentrate on your breath. When you feel your mind wander, which it will do, just go back to your breath. And let's begin now resting in the stillness.